Hey everybody, this is Eric Miller. I'm the Technical Solutions Manager at NextGen Solutions. And today I want to talk a little bit about Inventor iLogic. iLogic is a tool built into Inventor to help automate certain tasks. It allows designers and engineers to build rules between dimensions, uh, parameters, iProperties, in order to generate our designs a little bit faster, a little bit more efficiently. So before we get to that, I'd like to just talk about Autodesk and NextGen Solutions just a little bit. Autodesk is obviously a pretty large company. If you're watching this, most likely you've heard of them. 4.9 million subscribers, over 9,000 employees worldwide. And NextGen Solutions is just a little bit smaller. We're at around 40 employees, but we have been the #1 Autodesk CAM partner 6 out of the last 7 years. We were voted the #1 service partner in February of 2022 by Platinum Award by Autodesk. And we're also a gold partner authorized training center. So let's take a look at some of the design challenges that we deal with in the engineering world a little bit. So efficiency is obviously a big one. How do we get, make our designs, get product to market faster? There's always, setbacks here and there. We might go down one path and decide, oh, that doesn't work. Let's try a different route. But there's a lot of inefficiencies in our workflow a lot of times. So we're going to try to get better at that. We talk about repetitive tasks, things that are maybe not time well spent by the engineers and designers. Usually they're fairly high paid positions, and we want to have that team working on things that are value added and not just these repetitive things. So development time is always a challenge. Again, product to market faster. A lot of these are kind of connected, I guess, between efficiency, development time. We kind of touch on the same types of areas there, but we're always looking to try to get our products designed faster and high quality at a quicker time. So using tools in Inventor like FEA are always a great way to do that. Nastran is now built in. We can kind of rule out certain designs faster. So there's a lot of tools in there that can kind of help with that. And iLogic is one of those two that we're going to take a look at here. So we're going to do a little bit of demonstration on that as well. So, but just here in a second. So obviously connectivity to downstream divisions. So we want to be able to have that transparency between sales and service. Not just on the design side, those different departments need to be able to communicate information back and forth. Reusing data is obviously a key one too, especially on the design side, where if you design a part, we don't want to have to reinvent the wheel each time. So we want to be able to utilize that information, whether it's the same part or something just a little bit different. Being able to copy that data quickly and get it into the right spots, and not have 100 parts called bracket or 100 parts called plate. We see that a lot. We want to be able to reuse that information, because if you don't, it's more part numbers out there, it's more cost to the company, and it's more time and I guess space on shelves out there, where if it's the same hose, let's reuse that and keep track of that, track that data. So another area that can benefit from is Vault or Upchain. So two great data management tools that Autodesk provides. Also Fusion Manage 360 or the extension for Fusion 360. So there's some great data management tools out there that can help us search for those things faster and get better access to those parts to be able to reuse them. Also on the design side, my background's in mechanical engineering, and so obviously I didn't go to school to be a programmer. I think some of us that went to engineering school probably took maybe a couple classes around that, or one. I took a C++ class way back when. Didn't do great at it, so it's just not my forte. But I think the beauty of iLogic is that you don't have to be a programmer. The tool is built to kind of be easy to use for designers and engineers, even though kind of your end result is some conditional statements, and it kind of looks like code, but we're just going to pick those properties, pick those dimensions that we want to rely on each other, or kind of create equations between them, and iLogic is going to drop in the right syntax. So that's kind of the nice thing about it. You don't have to just type out code. We're just kind of picking chunks of it in a more logical manner. Before I move on too far, I just want to note that There is a class coming up here September 7th and 8th. So we have a 2-day iLogic Essentials. I think if this looks interesting to you and you want to try to build better models faster, take away some of those repetitive tasks and automate those designs, then I think this is a great class for you to take. It's a lot of great information in there. I think you'll find it's easier to learn than some other, obviously like the programming side. So if you get a chance to jump in this class, definitely take a look at it. And you can go sign up for these on our training on our website, NextGen Solutions or nextgencam.com. And you'll find our training events out there, and feel free to register out there. Obviously, if you have any questions on the class, you can always email me as well. So ericm@nextgensolutions.com or nextgencam.com. We're kind of transitioning a little bit. Our NextGen Solutions brand is more the design and data management in addition to the CAM side. So prior to NextGen Solutions, our company was NextGen Cam, and a lot more heavily focused on the CAM side. We'll skip the thank you. We'll come back to that. But let me get into the live system here and we'll go through an example. All right, so have Inventor open here. And one of the first things to note is that if you're working in iLogic, there's a nice browser right next to your model browser. So I'll close that out. You can get that just from hitting the plus sign next to that and then go to the iLogic. There's also, if you're using Vault, I don't have Vault initiated right now. You can see I have the Vault tab, but there's a Vault browser here as well that really works well for identifying where parts are at as far as synchronized to your Vault server, if they're out of date, if they're new and you need to check them in, those types of things. If they are checked out to you or checked out to somebody else, the Vault status symbols tell you a lot of that information synchronizing back to the server. But within this Vault or iLogic browser, we've got several different headings up on top. So we can create rules, we can create forms, global forms, external rules. So we're going to come back to that here in a second. As you can see, the model that I pulled up here is a wheelbarrow. Well, maybe it's hard to tell what it is. It's not fully defined yet, or not fully designed yet, but we do have the bucket part started, at least on that design, and we can see we've got a wheel underneath it. This is an example I like to use in our introduction to solid modeling classes. Talk about top-down design just a little bit. So on the model browser, you can see that I started with a skeleton. I like to, if you have a chance to do top-down design, it's kind of a nice way to think about creating new products. You get kind of a blank slate. We can put in some of the key parameters, planes, dimensions, sketches in our skeleton file, and then use that information to propagate down to our model. So in this case, you can see I've got 3 models here: the wheel, the handle, and the bucket. You can see the handle's not even been started yet, but we have the other 2 have been, and they've got the adaptive icons. So they're just pointing back to the skeleton file. So nice thing about that is on the skeleton, you can change maybe a dimension or 2 and then have that update, more than 1 model at a time. So if you get a chance, check that out. We can always help with that too, if you'd like to learn more about top-down design. First thing I want to do though, so with this project, we're going to be utilizing iLogic to create a couple different sizes of this wheelbarrow, but also change the color for each size. So we're going to kind of drive that based off a parameter. So let's open up our parameters dialog box here. And we can see there's several dimensions here. This is just the assembly level. So obviously not showing my all the dimensions utilized for the entire design. But one of the things I want to do on this level, on my top level, is create a parameter that we can use. This will be a user-defined text parameter, and we're going to call this just size. Okay, so we're going to come over here, and we're going to make this multi-value. So if we right-click on that, we go multi-value. I came up on my other screen here. And we're just going to create 2 different sizes for now. Obviously, if this was your wheelbarrow company, you might have 10 or 20 different sizes. But we're just going to, for the sake of simplicity and obviously demoing this at the amount of time we have, we're going to just go 2 sizes. So we'll go small and large. Okay, so we're going to hit add those. And now we have that as a parameter that we can use to drive some dimensions. Okay, so I'm going to close out of that. And I'm going to open up the skeleton now. So we'll see, okay, what dimension or dimensions do we want to be driven by this? So if I go now to the parameters here, we can see you can see what the skeleton looks like. We got some sketches, some planes, but you can kind of see the outline of what the wheelbarrow might look like, even though we don't have any geometry typically in a skeleton file, but one of the dimensions that I'm going to be concerned about with this different sizes is this bucket, the dimension used to create the bucket top. Okay, so that's the top plane controlling the overall height of this thing. So I like to check, yeah, obviously with dimensions in Inventor, we start at D0, go to D1, D2, D3, but you can change these as well. You don't have to leave them at those, the symbol that doesn't maybe make as much sense or have as much intelligence built in. So I'm just going to call this one height. It's going to make it easier to kind of see that dimension and know what it means. And you can see it's starting at 36 inches right now. Okay, so I'm going to hit done on that one. And so we want to make sure we pull that one in or utilize that in my iLogic design. So I'm going to bounce back to the wheelbarrow overall assembly, and I'm on the iLogic rules side now. We're going to right click in here and just start adding a rule to build this. So rule name, we're going to call this one change size and color. So we're going to put both of these. You could break this up into two different rules if you'd like. I'm going to put them both in the same one because we just for the sake of simplicity here again. Okay, so we're waiting for that to pop up. So here's the interface for using iLogic. So it's just you can see kind of on the left side, we've got all these different properties, parameters, features, relationships, even some advanced API items down in the bottom. And then also we can create our own custom snippets as well. So we call these snippets over here. But basically what the idea is we grab one of these, if you double click on it, it drops it over into the right, which is kind of your area for code. And again, once you start building this, you'll realize, okay, it ends up being kind of code, but we don't really start, we don't have to know, where all the commas should go, things like that are missing. There's definitely, don't get me wrong, there's some things that we have to be careful about, like when quotes are required, things like that. But it's, compared to typing all this code out from scratch, it's way easier than that. So obviously anybody that's done some programming in the past, if you have a comma in the wrong spot, a space in the wrong spot, it can cause, lots and lots of delays and you scratch your head, where is the issue at? But there's a little bit better situation in here than trying to do that. Up on the top, we can see that we've got a wheelbarrow new assembly. And if I scroll down, here's my three components, addition to the skeleton. So expanding these out, we can see here, these are my model parameters. If I just scroll down a little bit, there's the height parameter. So if I just double click on that here, it just drops it in. So as you can see, it's bringing in parameter, got the parentheses in there to the appropriate component, and then which parameter it is, its height. We can set that equal to something. I'm going to delete that out of there, but I just wanted to show kind of when you double click on it, it just drops the appropriate syntax down into the kind of the code area. Down below that, there's some options here too. We've got our if, then, and if, else if, those statements for adding conditional type statements. We've also got some keywords. One of the ones I like to use in here is the case. So when we use select case, it allows us to kind of build these different options. So it's kind of each case is a different option, and you can have that option, whether it be a parameter or dimension, have that drive other things based on each case. So that's what we're actually going to use in in the wheelbarrow project that we're working on now. It's also a bunch of different operators and a few other options there within that heading. Okay, so let's start building this thing. So the first thing is we're going to start with select case up on top. So I'm going to just click that keyword. And then the case that we're going to use is size. So let's go find our size parameter. If we go up here, that's under the wheelbarrow, that's a user parameter. I'm just going to double click on that. If you look at it, that's the small, large. So we can just double click on that. So select case is going to be size. So you're just saying what category here are we going to start building these different cases with. So I'm going to enter, and underneath that, now we're going to just say what our case is going to be. And let's say this case equals, and this is one of those scenarios where we do want to use the quotes. And I should mention too, capitalization is fairly important with these. So if we're using parameters to drive things, make sure, in this case, I used a capital S for small, capital L for large. We want to make sure we put those in correctly. So it's case small initially. And then underneath that, we say, okay, what happens to the model if the case is small? Well, we're going to drive the dimension for the skeleton file. So let's bring in that parameter here. I'm just going to double click on that down there, say parameter height is going to be equal to 30. Oh, oops, 30 inches. And you can put in units. We don't need them here. The units are already defined, so we'll just leave that. And then the other thing is we want to change the color. Okay, so now this might, there's a few different color options, whether you're in, a component or on a part model. We're in an assembly model, so I'm going to expand out the components. And then there's a color option in here that we can drive the color of just one of the components in the assembly. So we'll double click on that, and it says just comes in at part A. So we have to make sure we put in the right component. And if we scroll down here, bucket underscore new is the name of that component. So I'm going to go bucket underscore new :1. And this is another scenario where we're going to put in some quotes here to bring in the right parameter for color. And let's say the small one's going to be red. All right. So that's really all we want for changing when the case is set. So that parameter is set to small. We wanted to drive these two different things. We want the height to be 30 and the color of the bucket to be red. All right. So we're going to kind of duplicate the same thing. We can actually just copy those top three here. Let's copy those, come down, and we'll paste those in. Oh, I guess I should have went back one more level. There we go. So now case, and we'll just kind of update this to what the large situation is going to be. So we'll go case equals large. Well, then we want the height to be 40. And we want the color to be, let's say, green. Now, one of the things that we could hit save and run here, but with the select case, it does have to end kind of that argument. So we're going to hit enter. And this is one of those things, you don't have to always remember stuff like this. If you try to save and run, like let me just do it once here, save and run, it just tells us that select case must end with the matching end select. So again, it's not something we always have to remember. It'll kind of tell us if there's an issue. So we can just, again, at the bottom of that, then enter in end select. That's in the keywords. Okay, I'm just going to bring that back. Obviously, indenting like that kind of helps organize your, your arguments a little bit. You don't always have to do that, but I kind of like it just so I kind of look at more almost like in paragraph form. Now let's go save and run now. And there we go. It updated it. Notice the orange lightning bolt is up there. It still needs to update the dimension. So I'm just going to hit that. And now it went to, our smaller, shorter wheelbarrow. And we can kind of test this out by going to the parameters here and going small to large. And now it's updating. So almost a little bit surprised I got this to work the first time. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a coder, but it's so hopefully that kind of shows how utilizing iLogic can kind of be fairly straightforward and kind of use language that us, designers and engineers are kind of used to. All right, the last thing I want to show you, I guess not the second to last thing maybe, is how to build a form to kind of drive these. So let's go to the form side. We'll go add form. Okay, so we got our form editor, and you kind of see the form build over here on the right as you start to develop these. So I'm going to change the name of the form. We can just click on the label here and we'll call this change wheelbarrow size. Okay, so if I click off that, you can see now that I changed the name of my form over here. And I'm just going to, we can see different parameters, rules, iProperties that we can drag over and add to the form. I'm just going to drag this size parameter over, and we can actually give that a different name here too, because technically now we're only changing the bucket size. So I'm going to go bucket size there. And if you click off that, you can see kind of build. On our form now, we can see that it's small or large. So let's hit OK here. Again, this is pretty simple. You can really build some complex forms though with all the different information that's available there. So now if I click on my form, change wheelbarrow size, we'll just change bucket size to large, and we can use this then to, to control, the shape and the color here of our bucket. So, and the nice thing about building forms and building some of these rules, iLogic rules, is that we can take this kind of to the next level. Not only on the design side can this be utilized now to try to make these different options faster, but we can also extend it off to, say, for instance, sales. one of the tools that's out there now. You may have heard of Configurator 360 in the past. That's kind of getting phased out. Autodesk is focusing now on the Forge development platform, which is a cloud-based development tool. And with Forge, we can create a design automation configurator for Inventor assemblies using iLogic. It doesn't have to be an assembly. I guess it can be a part and drawings as well. So let me just pop that open quick so you can kind of see what this might look like. So here is the site. There's a demo site out there for this. Anybody can go check out and test this out. It's Inventor config demo autodesk.io. And there's just a couple projects out here, but there's actually, you can go get the code for this and build it on your own local workstation and test it out with your own projects. So that's kind of the cool thing now is this code is available to anybody. You do need a Forge account. So there's cloud credits that kind of get utilized to build these models, but it's pretty inexpensive if you ask me. I think it's definitely worth the try. So and just worth looking into. I think if you can get this in front of a customer to show kind of a web-based configurator like this, I think you can really kind of turn some heads and build more sales. All right, so let's just go through what this. So this is basically pulling in the different parameters that we want in iLogic. So we're driving the size and this wheel. We got the wheel size, number of spokes. You can have slots in the spokes if you want. Different wheel finish, brake material, but you just look at and actually the total price actually is generated from these other ones. So that just kind of kicks out what the price is going to be. So just think about having that in front of a customer. They can see the price right away. Obviously, it's kind of like some of those websites, you can go build a car, build a pontoon, and it kind of shows you what it costs. So this is kind of the same type of approach there you can use with your own products within Inventor. Now the outputs you can see up on top, we can look at different models. We can actually, rotate this thing around, take a look at it, explode the view, things like that. So this is kind of that cloud-based viewer that is being utilized now in a lot of different areas within Autodesk tools. We can look at bill of material, drawings, and then download the actual part files, create quotes, things like that. So it's pretty neat. Let's just look at what it takes. Now, some of these, obviously, if they're complex assemblies, it utilizes the cloud environment from Autodesk in order to build these. The Forge tool does. And so some of these, if there's a lot of significant changes, it might take, several seconds up to, potentially minutes in order to generate these. But I still think the value is there by far. So let's just make a couple changes. I'll do a wheel size is going to be 19. Let's say we want 8 spokes. Let's change this over to aluminum polished, and maybe we change the color here to let's do a smooth red instead of a light red. Okay, and I'll hit update. So this takes just a little bit of time to generate the results here. It's got to go through and build using the cloud server. So if you think about, you can actually do a ton of these at once. It's not utilizing your own, computer horsepower. It's using all the cloud servers that are required. So it's nice to be able to think about doing multiple different configurations at the same time if you open up several of these sites. So it can kind of definitely help with the process, the sales process. And again, like I said, some of these take a little bit of time. I know if you do one of them, it'll actually cache it, so you can kind of bring it back faster if you're bones. I must have picked a configuration that I haven't tried before, so that's why it's taken a little bit longer here to develop. But there it did finish. Notice here it said overall was 43 seconds. Not terrible. Might have seemed like, but that gives you some time to get to know the customer if you're in front of them. But notice the number of credits it took here was 0.0724. So that basically took 7 cents in order to build this thing. So pretty awesome as far as the overall cost to you. And, if you do a handful of these configurations, it's still, under a quarter, under 25 cents basically or whatever. So, so let's hit OK on this, and we can kind of see now what there's my 8 spokes. Okay, we've got the slot in there still, just a little bit different color red, probably not that much different. We can look around, see the back, and again, we can kind of explode these out. We can take measurements within here, but just nice to be able to show all these different components to a customer. And I think kind of the pretty good wow factor sometimes when you're dealing with these. You got the view cube up in the upper right. So wanted to kind of highlight that. In order to utilize this tool, you do have to use Inventor, but the code is out there for this. So you don't need to be a programmer. There's no extra coding required in order to get this working for you. Just have to set up, a Forge account and utilize that in order to kind of start taking advantage of this. You can see the price updated over here too. It was 1085. Now it's down to 1030. All right. Well, with that, again, just a reminder, the iLogic Essentials class coming up September 7th and 8th. Feel free to take a look at that. I'd be happy to have you in it, and appreciate your time today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.